Hey everybody, welcome to HIT.OR.DIE podcast, episode 86. Here with your hosts Jake Saldati and Chad Rothford. And one of the best players to ever come out of the area, Bobby Jones from Fresno High. Thank you for coming on the show with us.
You bet, my pleasure.
Fresno State, let's go. First of all, Fresno High, 87 Valley title. Fresno State, first All-American there. Big West Conference Player of the Year, Collegiate Baseball Player of the Year, 91 College World Series.
A bunch. Just keep on going.
Well, yeah,
you're going to be here all day.
Fresno State Hall of Fame, Fresno Athletic Hall of Fame. First round pick by the New York Mets. Spent 8 seasons with the Mets. Was an All-Star in 97. 2 seasons with the Padres. Opening day starter. Pitched in the 2000 World Series.
And more and more.
And more. But Fresno High, for a lot of people, I mean, we've said it on our show how, prestigious Fresno High is, and going back to, it was a powerhouse. They've had 13 MLBers, 2 Hall of Famers in Frank Chance and Tom Seaver, and they have 3 first-round draft picks, which was Tom Seaver, John Hoover, and Bobby Jones, which is you. And, that's I don't think any other program – I would almost think Bullard might be close, not the Hall of Fame-wise, but big leaguers maybe, just with the Noakes era. But 13, that's a lot. I mean, Buchanan's probably getting close to that number, but just go through your days at Fresno High and your decision to go to Fresno State and be a Bulldog.
Man, that's you're right about that. There's just so much history with just in the Valley alone. With the baseball players, and going back to I know Jason Pappy put something out not too long ago that showed overall major leaguers. I think Fresno High was in the top 5 of all of California schools, if not nationwide. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was impressive nonetheless. But I grew up right down the street from Fresno High. I mean, I lived there all my life, and I would go with my dad every day in the off season and hit ground balls and pitch, and just that was my playground. It was a place that was literally a 5-minute walk from my house. So I grew up there. When I got there, however, I was a baseball player, and people thought, he's good, but I really didn't see it until probably my senior year when I started getting some scholarship offers. So, I threw strikes. I had a big curveball, but just having the unknown of what it take to go to a Division I school. Am I going to go to college at all? And never was drafted, but had the opportunity to go to Fresno State. And at that time, that 88 season, they were in the World Series in Omaha. Preseason, number 1 in the team in the country in 89, which had been my first year. So I'm like, how do you leave? And I'm glad I stayed at home, because it was, another stepping stone to, my big league career for sure. With Coach Bennett, and then, going back to Fresno High with Coach Pappy. My dad kind of laid the foundation for me. He was a catcher. So he taught me in the backyard, to think along the lines of a hitter. We want to try to outsmart him. We may not be the best or have the best stuff, but we're going to outthink them and throw something that they're not looking for. And then I get to Fresno High, and Pappy kind of just instilled that same mentality with me, because I was a drummer in a rock band, had fairly long hair, hated to run, and he knew it, and he just ran my butt off. I mean, if anything went wrong on the line, which I'm sure he told Bennett, because the same thing happened when I got to college. I mean, they ran, but I wouldn't have traded for the world. Those guys were carried on what my dad taught me, but they also taught me about, growing up, being a man, doing the right thing away from the field, and never forgetting where you came from, really.
So you were in the rock band. You were a band. We got another bandy guy. He is in a band. So was that did you play multiple sports in high school, or was it just pretty much being in the rock band and baseball?
No, I played ice hockey as well. My dad was from Michigan, so loved hockey, grew up playing, and then I broke my left arm when I was 16. And I was much better at baseball than I was hockey, so I said that's enough of that.
Well, and you're in California, so that might...
Yeah, it's indoor hockey for sure.
I mean, getting back to going to Fresno State, I mean, obviously with the success they'd had, I'm sure even that was an easy decision. Was Pappy, being a Bulldog and playing at Fresno State, did he encourage you also to even go to Fresno State at all?
Not in a pressure situation at all. I mean, I had a couple offers, Hawaii, Texas A&M. But, I knew Hawaii wasn't going to be a fit for me. I mean, I I'm not a beach guy to begin with, but it was just an easy decision. I mean, there was probably not much thought about leaving town.
And so when you get there, had you had any conversation, like rapport with Coach Bennett? How was that process recruiting wise? It's so different now. Like what were, the visit and how did all that stuff work out?
Yeah, just I think a lot of it was mostly with Coach Rupsich, and Bennett was there a little bit to kind of lead the way and to talk about the his philosophy on pitching and whatnot. But I pretty much had my mind made up, and it wasn't like I haven't seen the school. I mean, I've lived here. I've watched them on TV, and I knew who was on that team, and I've been to games. It was one of the best stadiums in the country at that time. So I mean, I would have been foolish to leave.
So did you grow up going to Dog games?
I did more or less going to the Giants and going to the old Euless Park. But we'd get out there and venture to see some college games for sure.
You get to Fresno State, and how much of you talked about Fresno State helping you to get to the big leagues. What was that like? With Bennett is obviously one of the best baseball minds to ever be a part of baseball, but pitching wise, how did that help you instill not just the attitude but to be not perfect, but the little things? He's very much of do the little things right, and you're gonna succeed at this game. And what was that like playing with him and learning from him? Absolutely,
he was by far the best teacher of the game, and he had so many contraptions that if there was something wrong, he'd have these things strapped to your front arm and it would tow in your neck. And I mean, he just had all these ways of getting the story across, because to tell you, sometimes you don't see it, and that's why the game today is now so much video and seeing what you're doing. It's very important, and it helps you to learn to change. Again, going back to drumming a rock band, my freshman year at Fresno State, like I hated running, and we would do this drill, and he was a master of the fungo, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he hit that fungo in a bucket, and he'd bet you, $8 on the side, and he'd hit that bucket. But we'd do this running drill where you throw him the ball, you take off running, and he'd hit the fungo, and he'd hit it. You're kind of doing down and outs kind of thing and catching the ball. Well, every time he hit it over my head, and everyone would blame me. You're too slow, and but he knew what he was doing. And he'd always go, all right, 3 in a row, we're done. And it's dark and it's cold, and you'd count and it'd be like 1, 2, and I'm the third guy, right? So you know what's coming.
Trying to switch
first
place
2
on
catch,
line.
and everyone knew, you better catch it, you better catch it. Sure enough, over my head by 2 feet. Start over.
Yeah, we would do that. I'd always try to switch spots on line. I'm not going to be the guy that messed up.
Yeah.
I remember Pappy said that. Pappy would be like, he knew it was like if you were going to be 39 feet, he knew to hit it 40 feet or 41
right.
feet. Like he was so precise with his fungo.
Yeah, so I'd start, kind of slower jog, and then I saw him toss the ball up, and I'd sprint. It'd still be 2 feet over my head. But, that's what taught me. He taught me to grow up, and he taught me to be strong, and he taught me to realize, this is what's going to take you to the next level. You're not a high school kid no more. Now it's time to step up. And I still remember our first, I don't remember exact day or game, but Tommy Goodwin was talking about it on a conference call a couple weeks ago, and I think Bennett would put a list of pitchers down. So Eric Schultz from starting, second guy in. It didn't matter righty, lefty, second, third, fourth, all the way down. And I was the last guy every game. I was about probably 15, 20 games into the season, and we're in 14th, 15th inning. Everyone's done, and the base is loaded, tie game on ESPN. And so I come in, right, strike out the side. The next day I'm the closer. That's how my career started at Fresno State. And, I closed that whole year. My sophomore year, closed on the weekends because we had 3 great starters, and was got to start the midweek game. So he was priming me for my junior year, which that was my year when I was a full-time starter, and had a great year and went on to play pro ball.
Just take us through that year. I mean, that team was unbelievable, and we talked a little bit about Woody at shortstop, and just the guys behind you, your catchers. I think Todd Johnson was there at that time. Just talk about that season and what it was like to be. It's ultimately, I don't know, was it the Golden Spikes back then, or is it just Player of the Year? but ultimately being the Golden Spikes nowadays, but the National Player of the Year, and that's just got to be a great feeling.
It was a special year. You know, there was some really good players, but it wasn't a big, bunch of future, big league guys. I mean, there was some guys that played minor league baseball. There was a couple guys who played in the big leagues, but for the most part, it was a bunch of scrappy guys and young guys and guys who, when somebody went down, the next guy stepped in, and the lineup was different a lot of the days, and it just goes to show that we weren't even probably in the Big West. I think we were Big West at that time. We weren't dominant. We won our 40 games, which you had to do to get in the regionals, and got lucky and beat a Northridge team to get into the World Series, in the championship game at home. But we just were a bunch of guys who, it's they talk about chemistry. I mean, all those years the Dodgers, they had Karros and Mondesi and Piazza and all these great players, and they just never really won too much. You got to play together. You got to get along, and you got to do well together, and that's what our college team did for sure.
I heard a story. I think Bennett told it. It was that you guys didn't really have pitch counts back then, but we heard that you would come in and he would ask you how you're doing, and you'd come in and you'd kind of knock the pitches down a little bit.
Absolutely.
Say, I'm good.
Yeah. The next starting pitcher, which was Robbie Seitz, one of my good buddies, still to this day, he would have the clicker. And I'd come in and sit down next to him. I'm like, what am I at? He's like, 98. I go, roll that thing back to 72. I said, I ain't coming out of this game. And that's why I had 18 complete games,
Yeah, I think that's what he said. He's like, I think they threw about 100 and something pitches, but I know Bobby would come in and he'd chank it back, so he was around 150 almost every game.
Yeah, the newspaper pitch count was always different than the actual pitch count for sure. But I'm like, hey,
how cool is that to get to Omaha and play in Rosenblatt and that whole atmosphere?
It was obviously the ultimate college goal, to get there and play and just to experience that. And it was an experience that you'll never forget. Playing in the old stadium. I got to go back as a former coach, and not as a coach on the field, but to watch my kids that I taught at Fresno State play. And it's a different experience from player to fan. I mean, the fan side I think was almost better, because you're looking at kids. It's less pressure, but you're looking at kids down there that you taught and that are, on their way to stardom. But as a player, you walk in that stadium and just look around for your first practice day and like, wow, this is going to be crazy when everyone's in this stadium, screaming for you. And, we beat the number 1 seed Florida State first game. So that was exciting, and, end up losing 2 more after that. But the whole experience was what I'll always remember.
How was that? We saw a video. I mean, it's all over. The video of you winning game 1, and it showed your dad, and it was an emotional moment for him. But how big is that? Like you were just talking about growing up, and, he instilled the work ethic and stuff into you, and just to have that moment with him. Because I'm really close to my dad as well, and I know how much that means to a father.
Yeah, it was great to have him there. My now wife was there as well. But yeah, that's, you always see him up there with his fist pump in the stand.
No, you're good.
Fist pump in the stands. And, he was a proud papa for sure. And, just the whole experience, even the draft day, I wasn't sure. I had a great year, but I didn't throw very hard. And everyone's talking, well, we're not sure when he's going to be drafted. And I didn't either. So my dad and we went out and played golf. And it was on the golf course when my agent called and said, welcome to the Big Apple. You've been drafted between the first and second rounds, and pick for Darryl Strawberry, supplemental pick. And I was like, all right, well, here we go.
How'd the golf round go that day?
I don't even remember. Probably not very good.
And then, I mean, it's just so different now. That's such a polarizing thing, the draft, and televised, and the money guys get. And, how was it when you get into spring training? Obviously, it's different, but what was that like for you? And did you feel ready after playing with Coach Bennett to get there?
Again, that's one of those unknowns. You just don't know what the next level's like. Can I do it? You hear about it and you think, oh yeah, it's A-balls, like a really great, high school team. But until you've done it, you don't know. And I remember just getting thrown into, because I kind of signed late. I I pitched through a lot of innings that year, so I just kind of held out a little bit and decided, when I did sign, they put me in the last 6 weeks in A-ball and threw me in a house with a couple of guys, and it was a different experience, But learned to love it. Had a great year. Met a lot of good friends who I still am friends with today. And the minor leagues, it's tough. It's a lot of long bus rides depending on what league you're in, but it's fun and it's a growing. It's how you grow and learn and develop and ultimately try to get to that upper echelon.
Which you do. And we have to ask the moment, the call, how it came to the show. Take us through that and just tell us how it was.
Yeah, I think we're in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I was going to pitch the following night. So this was on a Thursday night. I was scheduled to pitch Friday, and Clint Hurdle, who was my AAA manager at the time, called me in the office, and he goes, "Hey, I'm not going to pitch you tomorrow." And it's one of those things where when you're in AAA, right, you're looking at the newspaper and you're watching games. All right, who got hurt? Who's doing well? That might be you going to get the call? Am I going to get the call? But at that point, we had no idea. Nothing was going on. So I went in just kind of nonchalant. And Hurdle was always kind of a little jokester, too. He'd do some crazy stuff. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm not going to pitch you tomorrow night." And I go, "Well, what's the problem?" And he goes, "I got to have you in Philly tomorrow night." And I'm like, "Philly? Okay." I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "Well, Saberhagen went down. You're going to fly out there tomorrow, and you're going to pitch Saturday night." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Here it is, right? All the things I've been waiting for, right? My first call home, call everyone I know. Hey, I'm finally going. I'm starting on Saturday night. See if you can get the game." And showed up Friday, and I knew a lot of the guys because I did pitch the Hall of Fame game in Double-A. When Seaver got inducted to the Hall of Fame, they called me up to pitch the game in Cooperstown, and so I knew a bunch of the players. But again, you walk in and guys will congratulate you, and all right, hey, first rounder, let's see what you got now, right? Kind of giving you jabs, and I still remember sitting on that bench, and that stadium in Philly is a tight dugout, and that was the year of Philly. I think they win it or they lost it to Toronto maybe, but they had Dykstra and Kruk and Dalton, and the loud it was just. It raised the hair on your neck, just when the team took the field, and I go, "Man, that's going to be out tomorrow night. I'm out there." This is, I didn't think what to think, but ultimately went out there the next night and threw a pitch, and Lenny Dykstra hit it so hard over my head. Ryan Thompson, center fielder, comes in running, making a catch, running in. It was hit that hard. And I go, okay. I settled back in. I said, I can get an out. I've done it. Now just pitch. And end up getting a win. I still remember Tim Bogar, our second baseman, had a great game. I remember this because he went 3 for 4 or something with 2 home runs and broke his hand in the same game. So that kind of always stood out to me. But from there it was history. Just go pitch, play the game, and do what I was taught from my dad to Coach Pappy to Coach Bennett, and just trust your stuff.
Did you ever go back or lean on Coach Bennett throughout the years of being in pro ball?
Absolutely. I sat in his office. Mark Gardner and I would work out with Zosky in the off season and throw our bullpens there. And there's days where we'd sit hours and just talk pitching in his office on cold Fresno foggy days. And we were going to wait for the sun to come up to go out there. And so we'd stay in there as long as we could, just talking baseball. And he was such a guy that you could talk to forever, every day, about something different, about pitching, about the game, about anything. And he was another father figure to me. He was just one of those guys who he taught me so much and pushed me so hard. I owe so much to him for that. I may have not liked it at the time, but looking back now, I would consider him a great friend and somebody that, really, really taught me how to succeed with my stuff.
Yeah. That's, you talk about these guys, you weren't the typical flamethrower. You had to, pinpoint your control and use your off speed. So, because nowadays that you might not even get drafted nowadays.
No way.
With the way it is now. To be honest, just to be honest, I know that's.
Hey,
but it's just you had to do things differently than
No
just
doubt.
throw hard.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, and that's why I was so great mechanically, because of all the stuff that Coach Bennett taught me. And if it wasn't for those drills, I mean, I still did those drills when I was in the big leagues. And then you'd look like, you're kind of, what's that guy doing down the line down there to some of this stuff? But it was effective. It kept me sharp, and it made me be able to hit spots, which, yeah, I mean, 85, 87, that don't fly really. But
Well, it flies.
yeah, it flies. Especially if it's not in the right spot.
Did you? I wanted to know. We talked about this. The toughest hitter you ever faced, and then maybe one that everybody thinks is a tough hitter, but you just, it was easy
owned.
for you. Yeah, you owned.
I can tell you this because I told you about the last interview I just did. The guy had all these stats, and he told me, and he goes, the three should be Hall of Famers. I think Bobby Abreu is the only one that's not, but Bobby Abreu, Tony Gwynn, and Todd Helton, especially Todd Helton. I tried to hit Todd Helton one time, and he fouled it off. I'm not kidding. His success off me was ridiculous. I mean, he knew something. He knew what was coming. Not to mention that park there. But, yeah, there was no cheap hits. I mean, it was screaming missile after screaming missile off him, and it was not fun. I don't remember Bobby Abreu so much, but his numbers were pretty good as well. The one probably the best hitter that I had the most success against was Bonds, for sure.
Really?
Yeah. Bonds and Sosa, those are guys that I knew where to get them out, and they would chase, and they would chase up and in. It's just a matter of how you got to that. If you can get through that, I knew that was their spot. And going back pitching wise, as you guys know, getting him out or getting anybody out in their hole or their weakness is not something you want to do all the time. You don't want to expose that. First inning, nobody on base, 0-0 ball game. I'm not going to go to that spot. I'm going to wait till there's second and third in a crucial situation to try to make that pitch that I know where I can get him.
Well, I think that's where your secondary stuff was crucial. You go back and watch the highlights of, we'll get to the game itself, but in 2000 in the NLDS against the Giants, I think you struck out Bonds twice. Once was a heater up, and the second time it was a heater looking, kind of middle in, and he obviously wasn't looking heater, and it just kind of seems like keeping guys off balance, and he looked frustrated too. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's up and in or going to a different spot. He knew he swung and chased up his first time, and he was
probably looking up or something.
Yeah, he didn't get what he was looking for, and he just immediately was walking back to the dugout. It was pretty fun to watch, actually.
Yeah, and then his last at bat, I think it was first pitch curveball at the end of the game, and he just flipped out to center field. Which you think first pitch curveball. Well, I mean, he's got to be sitting there looking for that. So it's again goes back to my dad. Outthink them. Think about what if they're looking fastball, try to not throw a fastball, especially with that 87.
And true. And how much does that go into your planning when you played compared to? I mean, now they have all the technology and their pitches and video of all these.
They measure everything.
I mean, you guys still had video and stuff, but how was your planning going into your next start for the team coming up?
There was a lot of video, not to the extent of today. Mm-hmm. And then again, with the stuff that they're doing today, I'm kind of lost with it. And I understand a little bit after talking to a couple of guys about spin rate, which, if I was struggling, it would be nice to go back and look at my breaking ball and say, okay, your spin rate's down, or at this spot you had, exceptional spin rate, and then you can kind of fix it. Our stuff was watching video, and we had advanced scouting too. So, big league hitters going to make adjustments. So, you say, okay, this guy, he's chasing up and in. Now all of a sudden he's not. He's letting the ball get deep and going the other way. They're going to make those adjustments. So that's nice to know. That's where advanced scouting is, on the road in front of you looking at that stuff.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about spin rate because it brings up another point with Bennett. I know you probably know what he thinks about all this new technology stuff, but he's like, I remember he's saying something about I don't even understand spin rate. If Bobby Jones has a curveball not working, just get out front a little bit more, and then that gets the more spin on the ball. It's like, which is funny because you look at spin rate, and that's almost how you correct it, is just the release point of your curveball. So it's funny how the old school is just seeing and knowing. And then you have the analytic stuff now, which it tells you your spin rate, but you know, a lot of people don't know how to fix that.
Right.
So, you know, but if you find somebody that could do both, it's good. But I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how he taught me, and that's what I teach today. Is, you know, and I relate it to certain things like, you know, you got your little kitchen bath towel and you go to pop somebody right in the shower. And, you know, you don't have that much whip on it, but if you got a bath towel, now you got to think of that as your arm, your throwing arm. So the more extended you are, the longer that whip, the more spin, the more jump out of your hand, the more velocity, so to speak.
See, I would have. That's one thing. I don't know who said it, but that was Bennett. He could even hear the glove popper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was just a very visual guy. He could hear it and teach it and fix it. And I don't remember. Maybe it was Purse that told us that. But you know, back to you in '97. I think you were an all-star. What was that like? Getting to be an all-star, and where was the game at? I don't.
That was incredible, and it was kind of a weird situation because I started off really, really good, and I think I was 12-3 with one start to go, and I mean it was pretty obvious I should be selected, but Bobby Cox was the coach that year, and my last start before that break was against him in Met Stadium, and they just rocked me. I mean, enough to where I'm like, man, I hope he still picks me, kind of thing. You know, I'm like, I'm 12-4 now. He should pick me. But there was still a little bit of that doubt, and after the game, he called over and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "you're on the team," and which I was really grateful for. It was one of those things again where you're that'd be great to have that on my checklist that I got to experience that, and then it comes to you know, I got a lot of pitchers, so am I going to get to pitch in the game? Not knowing again, I couldn't even tell you who started, but it was in Cleveland's new stadium, and just the stuff. I mean, it's the carnival of events that you have and the dinners and just the stuff that's set up for the players was pretty incredible. I mean, it's a good fan stuff. I mean, there's a lot for the fans to do with the players, but it was just like, wow, this is not just go show up and play a baseball game. This is, you know, we got this and this and this and signings and things for kids. I mean, it was really cool. I mean, going into the game, I know I was down the bullpen. And again, we were losing at the time, and they called down and said, "All right, Jones has got the 8th." So I got ready as fast as I could. I mean, I never didn't know how to get used to going and throwing one inning, so I just, you know, probably threw a half a game in the bullpen getting ready. And I remember I came out and I was throwing as hard as I've ever thrown. I mean, it was, unless their gun was off that day, it was pretty impressive because I had a lot of buddies in the stands and they were videoing this whole thing, and it was quite an experience.
And that was like, I mean, right? That it was all on TV, right? You didn't have the social media. You didn't have, you know, streaming sites or YouTube to watch stuff. So, like, Home Run Derby was big back then. I would assume back then it was probably like, not back then. I don't want to say. I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah, that was back then. That's for sure.
But Chad, you would, because I mean, as a kid, I was in.
Yeah, you're watching the Home Run
junior
Derby.
high. Then that's what we were watching, and you had guys like Griffey and Bonds and McGuire, and
I mean, what was that like? Just being around those type of players,
watching them
do their thing, or I mean, did you try picking brains of, you know, pitchers, and
I was
you guys
always
talk
close.
about that stuff like baseball talk, or is it more just?
It's not really. I mean, you know, not in the clubhouse kind of thing. It's kind of you're friends with who you're friends with, and I was close with some of the Brave guys, Maddox and Glavin. Of course, I played with Greg's brother Mike, so I mean, I knew those guys, and we played golf in the off season together. But I got to face. Well, here's kind of a funny story. I faced Nomar Garciaparra, and he got a base hit. Brady Anderson grounded out, so I'd run on first, and I struck out McGuire, and then I struck out Griffey Jr. And I remember coming in and sitting down on the bench going, "Wow, that was cool, but I'm glad it's kind of over, right?" And Schilling goes, "Hey," slaps you on the leg, and he goes, "I'll tell you what." He goes, "Your son, my son was just born." He goes, he'll be able to tell a lot of his buddies that his daddy's the only one that ever struck out McGuire and Griffey back to back. And I go, that's kind of cool, but that's something that's always stuck with me, you know. And you think about it, I don't know if they've ever done it or been in an all-star game hitting back to back or not, but yeah.
No, because he go to the National League pretty soon.
Yeah.
To the Cardinals, so That is cool. Griffey was my favorite player growing up, so that would be cool to strike him out. But you're playing with him, so you win.
Yeah, I remember I struck him out on change up down and McGuire on fastball up.
Was there? I mean, maybe early. I'm sure not so much as you got towards the All-Star era, but were there guys that like when you first got up, like holy? I mean, obviously,
like a wow moment.
You mentioned like Dykstra hitting that ball, and it's like, man, these guys are these. This is it. I'm here. Was there any other moments like that where you said, man, that's so and so I've been watching the last 10 years of my life?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of that. I mean, and just overall in general, I used to go because I mean, in high school, a lot of the learning was go out and watch batting practice, the opposing teams, and just to sit there, it's kind of intimidating to watch that. When guys, they swing so easy and the ball is going, 12 rows deep, and you're like, geez, I mean, what are they going to do in the game when they're, kind of a little more aggressive and not working on going the other way? But yeah, there was that wow factor for sure with a lot of guys just kind of looking and watching. I mean, everyone went and watched McGuire hit batting practice, right? And hitting up Big Mac laying up in the upper deck, and just it's crazy the stuff these guys could do. Did
the guy you interviewed with that had the analytics stuff, I know Chipper was really successful at Shea Stadium. How did he have any stats against Chipper at all?
I don't remember. He didn't for me, no, but he was another tough out. And, I grew up in the minor leagues coming up with those guys, Klesko, Javi Lopez, Chipper. There was a few more, but there were so many at-bats that they faced me, from AA to AAA to the big leagues. I mean, it was like, these guys have seen everything I have. I got to be on top of my game today, whereas a lot of other guys you never saw in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
So
I just know he loves hitting at Shea. He actually named his son Shea, I think, after Shea Stadium. So
another Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a daughter, Shea.
Yeah. After Shea Stadium too? No.
Well, kind of.
Yes, wink,
but
maybe.
We spelt it SHAY.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
And then you get to 2000, and I mean, you guys won a lot of games that year. I think it was like getting in Division Series. I want to say like 94 games, and you guys have the Giants. And I remember just doing, looking all this up and getting ready for this. I mean, there's stuff that is still written from back in 2000, and a lot of people questioning Valentine's decision to go with Jones. And I saw a cool story that said that your wife gave a quote like, Bobby's going tomorrow, and she said, he's going tomorrow? And with a question mark, she's like, he's going to pitch the game of his life. That's what she said.
Yeah.
To Valentine. Is that true?
True story.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know where she came up with that or what she was thinking, because I was the one with the ball,
Throwing you under the bus.
Dang, that's a lot of pressure, hon. What'd you say to him? You crazy? But, yeah, it worked out that way. And there were some great stories about that. I think this year was the 20th year reunion of that game. So, of course, I was doing reporters after reporters in New York were doing stories, and with the season being over. And there was a lot of stuff that refreshed my memory about that, because one was, again, it was either Mike Hampton, who was scheduled to start a day early, or myself. And I'll step back a little bit, because that's the year I got asked to go down to the minor leagues. So I was 0-3, just got shelled in Yankee Stadium, and got called in the office, and they go, hey, you know what? You need to work on your stuff. We think you should go down and make some starts in AAA. And I said, yeah, you know what? You're probably right. And as an 8-year veteran, I'd have to do that. I could have said, no way, you're crazy. But I knew I was not helping the team. And I knew in that kind of environment, it's not a time to go out and work on your stuff, right? I mean, I had to go down in a relaxed atmosphere and learn what I was doing wrong. And I went down, and I don't know what I was doing wrong, but when I came back, all of a sudden I was a different pitcher. So, again, it was probably just a touch and feel thing, or good pitches, bad pitches. I mean, you guys know, the game's a matter of inches, whether a ground ball's hit at the shortstop or in the hole for a base hit. I mean, it could have been a double play ball. It could be first and second now. So I went down and I didn't actually go down. I'd fly back and forth and make my starts. I stayed at home with the team on the bench. And when I came back, I was just very successful. And I think I went 12-3 the rest of the way. So getting to pitch that game and having the success I had was pretty special, because I knew I didn't help the team much that first part, but coming back and actually doing something and being a part of that was pretty cool feeling. I mean, I still remember, and as a player, you're so focused and so locked in usually, but I mean, I actually heard the fans chanting my name, to the extent where that just gives you goosebumps. And I mean, gosh, they were throwing stuff at me walking off the field, the first few games of the year. Get this bum out of here, But they, that's how New York was. They love you and they hate you, and they forget real easily, and they remember, who you are. But yeah, so my wife goes, Bobby Valentine the night before walking through the clubhouse, she's out in the tunnel waiting for me, and he goes, "Hey, Bob's going to start tomorrow." And she said, "Yeah." She's all right, good. He's going to have the game of his life. And sure enough, it was.
I think, and I mean, I don't remember, but again, and some people may that listen, you opposed Mark Gardner,
right,
for the Giants that game. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, my good buddy who we had a foundation with and live a couple miles away, two guys from Fresno, California squaring off in a pretty important game.
Yeah.
That was really special for, I think, our city, our coaches, our people that, supported us who love baseball and got to just sit there and watch that. And it was sad somebody had to lose, but, nature of the game. And
was it sad that somebody had to lose?
No, not really.
Do you think he's mad about it today?
No, not at all. He's so chill. I mean, that stuff doesn't bother him, nor would it have bothered me. I would have been happy for him just like he was happy for me. And he had a chance. He had bases loaded, 2 outs, and he was at bat, and he popped it up to second base. I mean, he could have, shot it in the gap, and that would have changed the whole game. Right?
I did see you scored a run in that game, and I was trying to figure out how, because you were 0 for 4. I don't know if it was
lightning speed. It was
all
that
out?
Running Pappy and Bennett maybe. Yeah, struck out and beat it out to first base. Yeah, I wasn't known for my hitting, that's for sure.
But you did hit, and I guess we'll get into it before the World Series. But you did hit a home run.
I did, yeah.
Big league home run.
Opening day, I think it was 97. I'm not exactly sure.
I know it was against the Marlins.
Mm-hmm. Livan Hernandez.
Broke a tie game.
It was funny because, the pitchers were run afterwards. We're out running foul poles, and he comes to me and he goes, "Hey, now you can finally hit?" I said, "If you throw it in that right spot." I turned on that thing, hooked it down the foul pole.
Was it a no doubter, or was it line drive?
I didn't even know I didn't know if I fouled it off. I've never felt nothing not hit the bat that smoothly. Normally I feel it, my hands and rattling down the line, but I didn't even know where it was. And all of a sudden I see the left fielder running, and it was pretty cool. But you know what? After that, I go, man, I'm gonna do that again. That was a good feeling right there. Middle in, that's my spot. But no chance.
I think you led the league in sacks one time, sacrifices.
I did, yeah.
I don't remember what year it was, but I thought I saw you led the league in sacrifices.
That's one thing I could do. I could bunt, and that's.
Well,
that's a possible run. I need that. I need that run.
Well, and that's valuable too, I think, to a manager. If you're, you don't see it so much now, and if they're talking about going to the DH to both leagues, but especially then.
Yeah, you are able to get it down. You're going to stay in the game more than likely. If they got to burn the bench guy to come in and bunt for you, that's just silly. Come on, that's not that difficult.
Right. No, 100%.
And most of the time, the other pitchers are laying it in there for you. They know you're bunting. Just get it down because they want the same thing back from you.
Right. They'll take the out.
Yeah.
How is that actually? I want to know that from pitchers to pitchers. Are you really trying to strike them out, or you guys have a mutual respect? Or
not when they're bunting? Give them give them bunt for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, hitting, no, it's a different game. They're trying to
make them look just ugly up there.
Yeah, I remember Darren Dreifert. He had the nastiest slider, which for me, I couldn't see that good anyways. But pitches where they were bouncing, pretty close to the plate, and I'm swinging it. I'm right on these things. It's like somewhat embarrassing. So
did you enjoy? You had a lot of ABs. I think you hit your whole career. You were in the National League. So
yeah.
How was it hitting for you? Did you enjoy it, or was it?
I did enjoy it, but there was uncomfortable at bats too, where you're like, this guy's a little wild, But I remember my first hit was off Maddox, and I was always comfortable hitting off him because he was, he's like me. He was, he'll run it in your hands, but for the most part, you got a little time to react to it and see it. Whereas somebody coming in there like Randy Johnson throwing cheddar and sometimes not knowing where it's going is like, I'm going to be up there in this corner of this box in this one. But yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed. I would rather play in the National League. I like that part of the game for sure.
You do. That's what I was going to ask. Would you like to have the DH in both, or?
I hope they keep it, but I don't think they are. I think they're going to change it.
Yeah, I'm for the DH just because I'm a hitter, and to me, it's like I don't think people really want to see
Another
pitchers
spot.
hit. Yeah, it's another spot for
It's just the game. It changes the game. It's different. There's a lot more, I think, strategy for managers and having that pitcher come up, like you said. I mean, that game against Mark, Dusty Baker took a lot of heat because I think that was the 5th inning that he came up with the bases loaded and they let him hit. And I think it was a 2-0 game at that time, maybe 3-0, but they put a pinch hitter in there. Who knows what happens?
Yeah. And that's what you've said is like when they get to the World Series, now American League managers have to almost change how they manage the game.
Well, and how does that work? And nowadays you see moves made all day long. We'll get into this a little bit more as we go, but let's say they do pinch hit. Are they going to, I don't know, whatever inning, if that's his 3rd time up, you're thinking mid late to the game, are you still in the game? Do they make a move to match up whoever they pinch hit for, or was that big then?
It just depends on the situation. If where your pitch count was, if you're successful off that guy, which more than likely they have had some success if they put him in there to face you. But again, it depends on the situation, the game, the score, and how many guys are left in the bullpen that day. There's times where you were expected to go out there and throw a lot of innings because the bullpen might have played 17 innings the night before. Whereas, that's another part where the game has really changed. I threw 10 innings twice in my career with Dallas Green. He was old school, and, hey, you haven't given it runs, your pitch counts go back out there. I remember one of them was in St. Louis and ended up going like 14 innings. But, yeah, I don't know how many pitches I threw, but, you don't want to come out. And sure enough, he said, all right, get out there. Go ahead.
Did you watch it a lot of this year's season?
No, not much at all.
No.
I never was a big fan of watching it. Even when I think growing up, I think I went to 1 or 2 games professionally. I went to, like I said, the minor league games and college games, but I would rather be out playing it. And even when I was at Euless Park running around, I was probably trying to get foul balls and probably playing wiffle ball in the corner with somebody. Right. And, Dad was at the game in the stands. I just wanted to be the one out there playing. If there's, occasions, Seaver's on TV, then I'll be in there watching that. That's my, the Fresno guy.
Yeah.
So
did you see any of the decision in the World Series at all with that's getting talked about with Snell getting pulled 73 pitches in the 6th?
No, I'm always in Wyoming, in a very remote part of Wyoming with no television during the World Series every year. And so what I get is, hey, this was the final score last night. Okay.
You talk to people that played at Fresno State, played for Bennett,
that knows what 100 pitch count looks like.
Or guys even in that era that pitched versus today. Guys aren't even getting through the 6th inning deliberately. And it works. They have their reasons. They have their numbers that they go off of. And, would you feel about being an ace, knowing that you're going to be asked to get at least 5-6 innings and I'm fresh. I want to go.
No matter the pitch.
Right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know it's weird to me. But again, I think the game has changed so much. Now everyone throws 95, it seems like.
Right.
So I think the injury part of the game is coming into that. I think a lot of it has to do with there's guys they're only 6th and 7th inning guys. That's what they're doing. They know. They can plan whatever they want to plan, but they're not coming that game until they're 6th or 7th inning guys. When I was playing, if you got knocked out early, you had a long man. So you had that guy that come in who was probably that borderline 5th, 6th starter, right, who he would be the guy that would hopefully carry you enough into the bullpen where you're not going to burn up the bullpen early in a game. But it's changed, and I know they have the reasons. It's just kind of, yeah, you're right. It's kind of weird, and having to come out after 70, 60, 70 pitches is just kind of, it's odd to me.
Yeah. Like you said, everybody, and we had Marcus Walden on, which he plays for the Red Sox, and he made a good point of the reason why they do it is they piggyback off of, like, say you threw 87. They're going to bring a guy in that throws 95. So 95 now looks like 100 and, whatever.
Some sink.
So he's saying that the way they're doing this is they're going to bring an opposite guy in the way they're running the bullpens nowadays, which it makes sense because now you're given a feel. But coming as a hitter, I don't agree with it. Sometimes when you're not comfortable with a starter and he's dealing, you want to see the bullpen. You want to see anybody else. So that's where I was kind of, I feel like I'd rather see somebody different than somebody that's dealing against me. So, but it is what it is. I mean, he made a good point. They got him to the World Series doing what he did, and he didn't want to, stop doing what they did. So, but if it worked out the other way, nobody would be saying anything about the situation. So
no, not at all.
But it's just crazy to think, you were expected to go a complete game. Bennett wanted you to go a complete game. You and your mind were going a complete game, and that probably stayed with you throughout your whole big league career as well.
Yeah. And I always joked I didn't throw hard enough to hurt myself anyway. So give me the ball, I can go out there and throw 150 pitches, no problem.
So you guys get through the Giants, and I think it was St. Louis next. And then obviously you had the Subway Series in 2000. What was that atmosphere like?
It was the most unbelievable thing ever. It was all that was talked about in New York. I mean, of course, Subway Series, it's the who's of who. You just turn around and look up in the stands, and you recognize that. Yeah, I know a bunch of those people were on TV, and there's actors out there, musicians. I mean, everybody wanted a ticket to that. Whether it was at Shea or at Yankee Stadium, they didn't care. They just wanted to experience it. And it was the same as a player. It was another game, but you're talking about two teams who are fighting for the back page of every local New York newspaper, right? Every game, day in and day out. And that's kind of the big talk about New York newspapers is you got the whole big giant back page. So you wanted to do something more special than the crosstown rivals did. And, as a player, the opportunity to pitch in the game was special, but just to be a part of it, even though somebody had to lose and we lost, I got to experience a World Series atmosphere in probably a little more special than a typical, White Sox, Dodger game. I mean, this was something that was just craziness. I mean, and the ticket prices were so ridiculous because they knew they were going to buy them. It didn't matter. But there's a funny story. It's not really that funny, my wife, but I don't know. You guys might have heard it. Were you going to ask me about this?
No, go, please.
First pitch of the game thing. So my first pitch in the World Series was a home run.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So my sister-in-law, she's our nanny, and she drives home with me that night after the game, and she goes, "Hey, how come the hitters never swing at the first pitch of the game?" And so I proceeded to tell her, well, it's kind of, there's a leadoff hitter, and he's trying to feel the pitcher out a little bit, let the dugout see some of his pitches, get settled in. I said, Ricky Henderson, would love to swing at the first pitch. He hit a lot of home runs doing that. But I said, most people, for the most part, they're just, feeling it out. And she goes, oh, okay, that's interesting. Well, next day I'm at the stadium, and Chuck Knobloch's leading off. Derek Jeter's hitting second. Well, Knobloch, something happens in BP or taking around balls. He gets scratched. So Jeter's now leading off. And I specifically had to talk with Piazza, and I said, listen, should we go curveball first pitch? What do you think? And he's like, yeah, maybe, and we kind of hemmed and hawed around. And I go, well, let's just go good fastball down and away. Well, that good fastball down and away kind of drifted back down and in, and whack, home run. And after that, after the game was over, I was thinking about my sister-in-law. She asked me about that last night. And I told my wife, and my wife came unglued on her sister. Man, it was not pretty.
So now that you say that, I did see that. I just didn't remember that it was an actual World Series, but I thought it was an opening day game for some reason. But I would never brought that up. Are you kidding me? We only want the good things.
That is good. That's hilarious. We all have sister-in-laws.
I mean, he's a no doubt Hall of Famer. You can't, If some guy you wouldn't remember, then maybe, I guess.
Yeah, and it was actually funny because somebody sent me a clip. This was probably 5 years ago, shortly after Jeter retired, and it said Jeter's career-defining moments. And so I was one of his career-defining moments. What the heck?
Hey,
You're welcome.
Could be worse.
You're welcome, Derek Jeter.
Hey, it could have been knob lock, let off with a base hit, and then he hits a 2-run homer.
So I mean, you guys have the interleague played. Then how was it pitching in? I mean, Shea Stadium, of course, but then get to pitch in New York, the Yankee Stadium. Did you ever get to pitch there?
I did in 2000. That same year, early in the season. The history of that thing is just cool. You get there early and go walk around and go back and look at all the statues in the back by the bullpens and just hear the old roars of the people that played there was pretty special. I mean, it was a cool experience. Although that was the game I got sent down to the minor leagues, but it was fine. It all worked out.
How is the beginning? Don't the fans like say the names of the player, like each player through the lineup, or?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it is, but they
like chant their name or nickname or something, and
yeah,
they're supposed to tip a cap.
But the thing that still I just remembered, the announcer, I forget his name. Oh my gosh, the voice coming over that thing was just incredible.
Yeah, I remember Jeter after he passed, he kept his name. That guy said it every time his whole career.
Yeah, it was super cool how he did that.
Didn't he do the name twice? Or he said
number 2.
Yeah,
Jeter.
Derek Jeter.
Yeah, something twice.
Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Number 2, Jeter.
Yeah, I forget his name, but I love that. And I think it's the year he retired. They put out that commercial of everybody like tipping the cap. Yeah, it's at the beginning. I love that. It's awesome.
And the announcer in Colorado too was incredible. Incredible. I mean, they had that voice, Dante Bichette, and then Andres Galarraga, and how he dragged it out. It was so cool.
They had some dudes there too, man. Jeez Louise, Todd Helton bring out. I
think
he's a Hall of Famer. I'd put we did a little ballot, for this year, and I checked it off.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure his numbers, but
not terrible.
He seemed like a pretty good player to me.
I mean, over 300.
He got robbed, and I forget what year I told you it was.
Oh, for the MVP?
He got it stolen from him. Jeff Kent. It was the same year Jeff Kent won the MVP. It might have been, was it 97?
I don't know.
I forgot. But go look at the numbers. He got robbed. You had a pretty interesting manager with the Mets too during that 2000 heyday. And was that the mustache? Were you there for that?
Oh yeah.
Was Bobby Valentine? Can you talk about him a little bit and what that was like?
Yeah, he was he was a great guy. He had his little antics and funny stuff that he would do, like put what's that, the mustache with the glasses on, come out there, and the camera's right here, right? So I'm like, of course they're going to pan right to him. They know who it is, but he always said afterwards, he goes, "It worked." He goes, "We won." Okay, that's how his mentality was, and he'd do funny stuff like, if we were getting no hit in the 7th inning, he'd get a bat and he'd go up on the on deck circle and he'd do all this kind of stuff, like, I'll get in there and get a hit, kind of thing. Like, come on, Bobby. But yeah, he was a great manager, a great guy. I mean, 2 of my kids were born under him, and he told me, "Hey, be with your wife." He goes, "You take as much time as you need. You let me know when you're coming back." He goes, "We're good." So, good, respectful guy. I won a award in New York, and let's see, when was it? Probably 5 years ago. I went back for the Casey Stengel Award. It's an award the Baseball Writers of America give away for. Casey Stengel always say you could go ahead, you can go look it up, stat-wise thing. And so they give us an award for outstanding performance that didn't get the honor it deserved at the time or something like that. And I won for that. And Bobby got to go up and introduce me for that award. So when he came to the hot stove here in town, I was out of town, but I got to go up and do not an interview, but a kind of like this podcast thing where they would introduce him, but it was me introducing him. So it was kind of a, payback kind of thing to him, which was kind of fun. But interesting guy.
He seemed like
but great guy.
That's cool. He just seemed like an interesting dude.
Yeah, but a good family man, and cared about the guys. Just had his little antics that he would, most people do have.
And then you finished off your career in San Diego. What was that like coming back to the West Coast after being?
It was good and bad. It's funny because at that time, coming back, I got sent down to the minor leagues, but coming back and finishing 12-7, I think I was, going 12-4 the second half, pitching a one-hitter, I got no offers. I mean, I was getting 0 offers. So I'm like, what's going on? My manager or my agent was doing the big Manny Ramirez deal at that time, so he was busy, but I was going, this something doesn't seem right. I said, so people think I'm either an idiot or I'm hurt. Something's wrong with me. This guy's a clown in the clubhouse, whatever. So at one point I go, you got to get me a job anywhere. I need to pitch. I need to prove that there's nothing wrong with me. And so we ended up doing a contract with San Diego, and I said, just give me whatever you can afford and give me incentives so I can reach those goals, and you can defer the money. I don't care how long. So we came up with a great structured deal. First half of the season, I was pitching every game. I was a good guy. They picked up my second-year option right away and had a great time there. But I was there as the old veteran for the young Jake Peavies, to kind of show them the way as Doc and Brett Sabrig were for me in New York, right? So you go on from a team where it's intense scrutiny, where they're cursing you off the field, to a place where you go up and give up 5 runs, you get a little golf clap, and off you go. It's not that big of a deal. It was less pressure. It was not as intense as coming from a World Series team to a rebuilding team that kind of knew they weren't going to win. You had Tony Gwynn on the team, Klesko, Phil Nevin were on the team. So there were some superstar guys, but other than that, it was young kids. And I had a really rough year there. Lost 19 games, and Bochy, everyone was trying to protect me. You got to stop. It doesn't matter. You're not starting no more. When you got 18, that's it. I'm like, I ain't quitting. I'm going out there. I don't care if I lose 20 or 22. What's the difference? I said, I'm going to pitch. And at one point, I had the lowest ERA and the lowest run support in all of baseball. But I was fine with it, and it became a joke. All right, we got Randy Johnson against Jones on Saturday. Good luck, Jonesy. We'll do our best, but, the run support's not going to really be there today. And, it was a big joke kind of thing. But I enjoyed it because it was close. My family could make a lot of trips down there. Whereas going to New York, you got to take some time off work, and you're not going to go back for a short weekend for sure. And Bochy was awesome. I mean, to this day, we're still buddies. I see him in the off season. We do a little hunting together, and just one of those managers who was really, really good to work with. And I couldn't believe he left San Diego, but I guess when you go to up north and win 3 championships, I guess he knew what he was doing, because it was a pretty good job down in San Diego, I thought.
Yeah, I got to meet him a couple times when I was with the Giants, and he seems like a down to earth, manager or person even. Because you're a minor leaguer and you see the manager of the big leagues, you kind of get a little nervous and stuff. But the way he talked to us, and it was like we were just one of the guys or something.
Yeah. Well, he knows how tough the game was. He was a player. He knows about failure. So some people change a little bit. They get on the other side of the game and think, get up in the booth and start talking about, well, this is what I would have done, or, the game's still pretty tough, and no matter who you were, there were some failures for everyone.
Yeah.
Did you get to walk away on your own terms?
No. Well, yes, in a way. I forget, there was probably 15 more games in the year, and there was a kid they were going to bring up, and they said, all right, we're going to let you go. You can, hang out if you want, or we can just release you. And I said, well, release me. I'm going to, I don't want to stick around if I'm done for the year. And they go, okay. So I was driving home. My family was up at Bass Lake with some friends. And so I called my buddy and I go, hey, don't tell nobody, but I'm coming home. I'm just going to show up, pack a bag at home, and I'll be up there, right? 6 o'clock tonight. Make another dinner plate and have a beer ready or two. And so I got home and I was packing my bag, and Clint Hurdle called me, Colorado. He goes, hey, we want you to come out. You get 3 more starts, 2 against the Dodgers, 1 against somebody else. And I said, Clint, I'm going to the lake right now, and I'm not thinking about baseball. Thank you, but no thank you. He goes, hey, what about next year? This could lead to us signing you next year. And I go, for one, why would you ever want me pitching in that stadium? I ain't going to Colorado. You're out of your mind. I said, I love the stadium. I love the people. I love you, but I'm not pitching there half my games. No thanks. So the following year, I got offers from Colorado, and Kirby Puckett called me a lot from Minnesota, and he tried to talk me into coming playing there, and I was like, you know what? We took a dinner vote around the dinner table a couple of weeks ago, and we said, Daddy can go here, or we can stay home, and he can be a field trip going, driving you guys to school, picking you up kind of dad. And everyone raised their hand, and I called Mage, and I said, I'm done. So in a way I did, but I have no regrets to this day about it.
Not everybody's that lucky, though.
Yeah.
They get the people calling back. I mean, so when the season came around, did you get that itch? Like spring training? Like,
No. I just moved into a new home. I enjoyed doing stuff with my kids. I enjoyed hunting and fishing, which is, a real passion of mine. And I didn't have, there was a lot of pressure in baseball, and I love pressure, but as you get older, the pressure got tougher, especially when interleague play started. From when you used to go to 3 cities and be on the road for 10 days, it was beautiful. But when you go to 5 cities for 9 days or 10 days, you're moving in and out of it. Why even unpack a suitcase? It got to be a lot of travel, and the travel's easy, but it's just, you're traveling from coast to coast on an off day. So there's, not much time to do stuff that you really enjoy. And so I got that opportunity. I got to go home and do what I wanted. And like I said, I got my 10 years, I got my pension, and I was happy with it, and just got to be a full-time dad then.
Some good experiences too.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
All the way along the way through. It's crazy.
Now, you played in what they call, I hate how they call it the steroid era, because it's my era of growing up and watching baseball. And I feel like baseball was so good in that time. How do you feel about these guys that are, I think, Hall of Famers like Barry Bonds, Curt Schilling, Roger Clemens? How do you feel about that era when, you played your career clean and supposedly there was a steroid era of guys you're pitching against that potentially were on steroids?
I think it's baseball's fault. I don't think there was no testing. So therefore it's not something that might be frowned upon, but if you're not controlling it, then what it's got to do? Hey, I want to, hit home runs too. And, I would never even think of pitchers doing it, but I've heard there was some, and it's funny because it was never talked about. And you would think if it was that popular, you'd see it in your own clubhouse. You'd hear guys talking about it. You'd come across it at some point. That was never the point for me. And I think it was Ken Caminiti came out one year and he said, I bet you there's 70% of Major League Baseball players are taking steroids. And I'm like, there's no way. But that's, again, I don't know that for a fact. I know that there's been some guys who come out and, hit 8 home runs this year and 44 the next year, and forearms are twice the size they used to be. And, maybe he had a cycle or two there. But, again, it's something that, in my eyes, it wasn't banned. So, and a lot of it too is the guys you heard that were taking it to recover. I don't know enough about it to if that's what it does or if it just, makes you stronger and lift more. And I have no idea, but hey, it is what it is. And if there was no steroids, who knows if it would have changed my game or not, or changed anybody for that matter.
Yeah. And you think those guys should be in the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You played against them. Barry Bonds is, even before he was a Giant, he was one of the best players to ever play the game, statistically.
Yeah, two or 3 MVPs already, and
yeah,
pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Roger, you faced him. And so.
Yeah, and I think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame too.
Yeah, I do too. That's an argument we have, and I feel like then don't put him in as a manager. If he did all that stuff as a manager,
right?
Don't put him in as a manager. But his records will never be broken.
No chance.
Still gets me that, I don't know, whatever. People have their arguments for that. I don't get them.
Well, that's another thing. How do you feel that, the baseball writers are the ones that do the voting, and it's not, you have the Hall of Famers and the baseball writers. I would think that, you know, you played with all these guys. Why shouldn't you have a vote in the Hall of Fame for, you know, them better than almost the baseball writers? Let's be honest. You played against them. You were in clubhouses with them. You know, bled with them, sweat with them, whatever. I think big leaguers, if you have a certain amount of time, should have a vote in the Hall of Fame.
That's a good point. But, you know, I think it's probably just the history of how it's always been. But again, on the opposite side of that, the game is somewhat changing from what it used to be too. I mean, this thing with this runner on second base thing, I'm like, that's not even right. Well, I mean, I understand they're trying to speed the game up, but come on. Just throw a runner out there. But I did learn that it's an unearned run or it doesn't count against you or something. Because like I said, that can throw off all of.
You won't get a loss.
You will or it won't.
You won't get the loss. I think.
I don't know.
It's one of those. It's you don't get the run or you won't get the loss. It's one of the two. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I mean that's.
But that changes your whole demeanor on the mound.
Sure. Going
in with nobody on base to a guy in the scoring position.
That's tough to get out of that too, depending on what part of the lineup's coming up.
Yeah.
With no outs. Yeah. And Loop even said it. Luplo was like, you know how hard it is to get an extra base hit in the big leagues against these guys? Just going to give us a runner. I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of interesting rule changes too. How was it? You had Piazza as a catcher for a while. How was that?
It was great. He was he took a lot of flack for his catching, I think. There was a lot of negativity about his defensive skills. I didn't really notice it too much, but if you did, it's great to have his offensive, part in the lineup just to that was something special to watch him. That guy he could swing a bat, and he was strong, and he hit the ball a long ways. But good guy, thought he was great. One of my best catchers ever was Charlie O'Brien, though. I don't know if you remember him. He does hunting shows now, but I remember pitching the Hall of Fame game, and this was on his Double-A kids, where I get called up, right, pitching against the White Sox in this little bandbox of a park in Cooperstown, and it's 240 down the lines, and just it's a little deal. And Frank Thomas is up. Charlie goes, fastball up and in. I'm like, no. Fastball up and no. Timeout. Comes running out there. He goes, listen, I've done this a long time. Don't shake me off again. Throw it where I call it. I said, okay. So sure enough, I threw it 3 times in a row. Swung and missed every time. But he had a way of catching, which was kind of cool to me. So he always said, I keep the glove on the plate. So he'll catch the ball in the pocket or the web, depending on what side the plate is, just so he had most of the leather over the plate, which to me, I'm like, that's impressive to be able to do that, let alone a runner on first base. All you saw was the white of his eyes, right? And it was kind of trippy. I had to start looking at his shin guards and stuff because he's looking at the runner at first base until the ball's darn near in the air. So it was like, I finally asked him about it. He goes, no, I'm on it. I got it. And my eyes come back at the right time. I'm just watching that runner. And I'm like, yeah, but that's weird to see just all white and you're down the line where you're, are you sure you're paying attention? But he was great. Really good catcher.
I love that. And then so you get out of baseball for a couple years and got into coaching. You helped out a pitching coach at Fresno State in 2006?
Oh, no, where were we? 5. No, 6. 2006. Yeah, 2006.
Yeah, I think it's 6.
Was it just the 1 year?
Just the 1 year, yeah. And it was fun. It was a great experience. I didn't know if I would like it or not, but it was good to work with Batesel. He was great with the kids. He let me control the pitchers. I had a few really good arms. We ended up having a spectacular year. 2 of those kids go on to pitch in the big leagues. And the one who I thought would be the most successful in the big leagues, didn't make it, but he was probably our best pitcher there at Fresno State, Andy Underwood. But it was just a good group of kids to work with. And the problem was I signed my professionally as a junior, so I didn't have my degree. Well, the whole hurdle, pulling teeth to get me in there at this coaching position was I had to work towards my degree, which I did. I took 2 classes, but I was in the office. Other coaches are doing their work. I'm doing homework, which to me I hated to begin with. It was like running, right? Homework and running. Come on, do your schoolwork at school.
Kids, don't listen to that. Do your schoolwork.
Do your homework. But I just didn't like it. And it's doing my homework when I'm supposed to be doing a job coaching and writing up plans and going and recruiting kids on the road, where my other coaches have to do that part of it for me, it was tough. And I said, I can't go back to class. I mean, I can do stuff in the off season, but obviously school doesn't work that way at the Division I level. And they said, well, we want you to do this. The administration wanted me to do this much school. And I just had to say, that's enough. And I can teach kids on, and make my own hours on my own, which was not as fun, but it was a good experience for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine telling a 10-year big league vet, that's crazy that they wouldn't just let you. I mean, with your experience, like, you got to be
in the classes I had to take too, and I realize now, I'm like, I wonder I didn't take them when I was actually in school, and now I've got to take them. I'm not going to say what they were, but they weren't my funnest.
And so now what do you got going on? You brought us
living life.
Yeah, you're hunting, right? We got to get him with Underwood. Love, that's his thing.
Underwood likes bow hunting.
Does he?
He loves the bow. Yeah.
I prefer a gun, but I like a bow. I mean, I was in Wyoming early with a bow on archery elk, and it's a different animal getting up close to something that size and being able to outsmart that animal in its own environment, having to get 40, 50 yards. But yeah, my passion is really duck hunting. I love fowl hunting. Partially because I can do it a long time. When you go on a deer hunt or an elk hunt, it's a 5 or 6, 7 day trip, and it's pretty much over. Our hunting season here for ducks is 100 days, so you get your fair share.
You're in it for 100 days.
Well, no, our club is.
I mean, you're hard to get a hold of. You're out doing something. So.
Yeah, I cannot stand to sit at home. My wife always goes, "Where are you going now?" I said, "I got to do something." I mean, if I'm not outside doing a project, I cannot sit still unless I'm watching the Masters or something, exciting to me. I'd rather just be doing something somewhere. But yeah, I got a little barbecue sauce line out, 142 barbecue that's kind of started here about a year ago, and should be on Amazon soon. We're working on packaging deals now and how this is going to work, but just a fun thing. I love cooking. I cook every day, every night. My wife loves to cook, but she doesn't like it as much as I do, so therefore I get to do it, which, I love wines. I try to pair wines. I do charity dinners, different things where I can pair a nice wine with a meal that's going to enhance each other. Learned to do that a lot. I grew up on a winery in high school and worked at the winery, but didn't care to pay any attention at that point. And now it's probably one of my favorite things. Made wine for a number of years. Had a sinker slider cellars. Had Fraxinus vineyards, which Fraxinus means ash tree, and ash tree Fresno means ash tree in Latin. So just fun stuff, just busy stuff. I mean, I told you how many miles out of my truck, all right? So I'm
37,000.
Yeah, a little over a year old. So yeah, I like to keep moving for sure.
Well, I know you're a golfer. You don't golf anymore?
Gave it up.
Really? Okay, so then let's go back in the memory bank. Best pitcher. You Smoltz probably maybe, but other than Smoltzy,
Maddox maybe.
Maddox. They're in the par range or subpar.
I mean,
Smoltzy's under par.
He's a scratch dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both really good players. But Smoltz, I know he tried to make it on the senior tour and got put in his place real quick. I think he didn't.
I think
do
that was
so
a couple
well.
years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember seeing that.
Typical golf courses are different, and there's some that are much harder than others, and those guys played some great courses and really good players. Dilfer is another good player. There's a lot. I mean, I've always wanted to go play in that celebrity tournament in Tahoe and never got the opportunity, but yeah, I gave it up recently. I've always had a bad back. I had a hockey injury, so it always affected me golfing because I swung it pretty hard. And I hunt and fish more now, so those 4 or 5 hours on the golf course are just not as fun if you're not playing all the time. You're not getting better. You might as well chuck your wallet out there and just give up because your handicap's not going to do anything differently. And when you're playing 3 days a week, you're getting better. If you go out there every so often, it's tough to keep up with the locals for sure.
Yeah, Woody's that way. They're just super competitive, man. that nature. And I know I'm not very good, so I don't care.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm that guy that gets to play like twice a year if I'm lucky. So.
Yeah, and I do play in different events here and there, but for the most part, I mean, I used to play a lot. I don't do it anymore.
Well, we appreciate you finally getting a hold of you in your busy time. Coming on the show, it's great. It was good talking to you and listening to all those stories. And
yeah, it brings back a lot of good memories, and it's it's fun. It's been a long time since I've been in the game, so I always enjoy talking baseball and have fun doing it.
Before we go, we do try to get out the information to all the younger guys that want to move on and play at the next level. What quick information would you give these high school guys that want to compete and play at the next level and ultimately, get to where you got?
Well, it's changed a lot since I've been in where I was at that point and being drafted or getting scholarship offers. I think the game has changed so much to where this year-round play is it's tough because a lot of people are doing it. So you're trying to keep up with them. But honestly, I mean, there's showcases that you can go to. You don't have to do so much. I think if you're good enough, you're going to get recognized. They're going to find you. And, there are things that can benefit you with these showcases or the area code games or different things you get an opportunity to, but don't overdo it because you only got so much in your arm. And, I was always fond, and even to this day when I teach kids, I'm like, take some time off. Your arm needs to rest. I mean, heck, 20 years ago when this whole thing started, 15 years ago, I mean, you're talking about little things, growth plates and different injuries that are happening to these kids because they're doing so much. And I mean, when I played, I never knew what that stuff even was. I mean, there wasn't that, because we went on from baseball to soccer to taking some time off and going on trips with the family in the summertime and not having to take your glove with you and throw, bullpens every day. I mean, you must rest your arm and get healthy and get into a good program that can strengthen the little muscles inside your shoulder. And that's not the bench press and the curls. It's the little stuff that you don't realize that you can strengthen, in your rotator cuff and your elbow and stuff that's going to, prolong your throwing for sure.
Awesome.
Excellent stuff. No, again, like Chad said, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it. It's, we grew up fans going to state games and watching you pitch there. And, so this is cool for me to have you here. And again, we just wanted to say thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. It's been fun.
Cool.
Anytime.
Heck yeah. We'll definitely hold you up to that. Just thanks to everybody for listening. Everybody that went to the store and bought stuff, we appreciate that. That's episode 86, Mr. Bobby Jones.
Wow.
Hit or Die podcast.
Hit or Die.